Let's look at the steps to success, level 2 in chapter 4 on page 256. The file we're using is called unpaid, and they ask us to name it unpaid invoice penalties, and I've put my name in front of it just so that I know that it's the one I was working on. Here's the sheet that we are given. Notice they give us an outstanding balance report on people, and they give sort of what the boundaries are. Let's read the description of the situation on page 256. It says the zone, that's our company, accounts payable group can sometimes be delinquent in paying the vendors. Our people who pay our bills are sometimes not on time. That does not sound good. In some cases, this is a deliberate effort to hold off payment as long as possible. In others, it's simply an oversight. This is true in business, right? If we want to get paid early, we offer people a discount. If we don't want them to pay late, we put a penalty on them. And the person might still pay us late because they say, I can make more money with this money rather than paying you and paying that dinky penalty. I can make more money by not paying you. Basically, if you owe me money, I want it as soon as possible. If I owe you money, I want to wait as late as possible to pay you. The accounts payable group has developed a worksheet listing some of the vendors to which we owe past due balances. So here are our vendors that we work with, and it depends on, here's how much we owe for the last 30 days, here's something that's 60 days past due, and here's something that's 90 days past due. All right, so that shows the worksheet and says recently some vendors have started to apply different penalty and discount schemes. As a preemptive measure, you've been asked to help calculate some of the penalties, and a list of these balances is provided here. Here it tells us here's what some of our penalties are. That's a fixed fee, and then here's a range. The more you owe, the bigger your penalty is. And then there's certain penalties depending on the category. So let's look at the actual steps on page 257. Number 2 says, some vendors have agreed on an industry standard penalty of $45 on all past due accounts, regardless of the amount or how late you are. They're probably not going to get paid on time very often. These vendors are identified by the value true in the corresponding column C. The ones that are true here, these guys, it doesn't matter how much you owe or how late you are, they're just going to apply a standard $45 penalty. Write a formula in column H that says the penalty for the corresponding account. So in other words, if this thing's true, if they apply a fixed penalty, what are we going to put here for them? $45. If this is false, how much of a penalty are they going to charge us? 0. That's right. They're not going to charge us any fixed penalty. They're going to use these things over here to charge us more depending on how much we owe and how late we are. We just need to say, if this thing is true, give me the $45 penalty. Where's that? That's right up here, isn't it? So I'm going to go right here under my fixed penalty. How do I start an if function? Equals if, and then what? Open paren. And now I want to say if this guy right here, if this guy equals true, and by the way, we don't put it in quotes because we're talking about a logical value. Notice when I typed it without quotes, it showed me, oh, you want this logical value. And it's going to capitalize it, but it doesn't matter. If that's true, then I want $45 here, but I don't want to type $45 because what if that changes? I want to go up here and say always go to this cell and don't move down. So let's press F4 to make it an absolute reference. Give me what's in B2 if that's true. Otherwise, what do I put here? 0. That's right. And I close the paren, and it says, yeah, they don't do that fixed penalty, so they're not going to charge you anything in that column. Now, we said this before, but I'll state it again. You don't have to say equals true. You can just say if C9, because C9 is C9. We don't have to say equals true. We can just say if C9, and it's going to give us the same result. Because saying if 3, is 3 true? Yeah, it's always 3. And then C9 is a reference, so it's going to look there, and if it's true, then it'll put true. If it's not, it'll put the thing for false. So if I copy that formula down, sure enough, the ones that said true gave me the $45 fee here. So they're gonna be nothing over here, aren't they? They're not going to charge me anything for 90 days or graduated or category penalty. They're just charging me a flat fee. But we want the formula to be able to copy down. Everybody okay on that? That's number 2. Okay, number 3. It says calculate another possible penalty whereby only those accounts with 90 days past due are owed a fee in column 1. Write a formula that can be copied down. Now, we do have to be careful because these things are actually divided out for us. In a sense, this 90-day amount is also 60 days past due, and it's also 30 days past due, isn't it? But because they've separated in columns, we don't have to mess with that. We talked about doing things that are mutually exclusive, that can't be more than one. There are ways that you have to be careful if you're doing things that could be more than one. But they separate it out in different columns here, so that takes care of that. Let's look at the 90 days. It says calculate that. It says in column I, write a formula that can be copied down the column to calculate the penalty based on the following criteria. For accounts with a 90-day past due balance of $50 or more, apply a fee of 12% on the 90 due balance. If they owe more than $50 for 90 days, apply 12% on that balance. For all other accounts, no penalty is applied. It seems like we'd want to take into account these true guys here because they're not going to charge us anymore. They're just charging a flat fee, but they're not saying that. So let's just say if they were charging 90, here's what they'd charge. If we've got a balance of 50 or more, how do I start my formula? That's right. Oh, here's our 90-day penalties. There's the 50 or more, isn't it? And there's the 12%. So we want to refer to those cells. So equals if, where's my 90-day past due? It's right here, isn't it? If that thing is greater than or equal to this amount, and we want that to be absolute, dollar signs on both. If that thing's greater than 50, then what are we going to do? We're going to apply a 12% penalty to the balance. What does the word of mean if we say 12% of your balance? It means multiply, doesn't it? So if that's true, if I owe more than $50 for 90 days, then I'm going to take this number, 12%, absolute, and I'm going to multiply it. How do we indicate multiplication in Excel? What symbol? The star, the asterisk? So I'm going to multiply that 12% times whatever my past due balance was. What if my past due balance wasn't bigger than $50? What am I going to put there? 0. So if I copy that formula down, notice here are the penalties we would owe on our 90-day balance. But like I say, maybe they'll do this later, but you're only going to calculate this if this thing is false. You're not going to calculate it if you're already just paying that. Because you'd want, at the end, you'd want to be able to total up all your penalties and see how much you owe. Well, these two things are not even going to be included in the total, are they? Because they're just charging us a fixed amount. So that's something that I would want to make a little more accurate. But we're just practicing with our if functions. All right, number 4, let's look at that. It says another penalty scheme being used by vendors is a graduated method based on the total past due balances. That's in column G. Okay. So this is a graduated method based on How much do you owe me? I don't care how long it's been. You owe me this total, all right? Total past due balance. That's summing everything that's 90 days, 30 days, and 60 days. So on this graduated penalty scheme, it says write a formula that can be copied down. Here's the criteria. If you have a total past due balance of 10 grand or more, apply a penalty of $600. If it's between 10,000 and 3,000, apply $250. And if it's a total past due balance less than or equal to 3,000, no penalty. Here's the scheme for that. This is sort of like what we just did with the big, medium, and small, isn't it? They set it in order of big to small, didn't they? So let's do it from big to small. So the graduated penalty equals if, and what are we looking at? We're looking at our total past due balance, aren't we? If that thing is 10,000 or more, what's our inequality operator? To say 10,000 or more, how would we say that? That's right. That'd be greater than or equal to, and we don't want to type 10,000. We want to click on this because those numbers might change and we just change them in one place. But we want that to be an absolute reference. So if our total balance is greater than or equal to that, what's our penalty? Comma. It's this $600, isn't it? And that is absolute reference. Well, what if our balance is not greater than or equal to 10,000? Then we're going to ask another question, aren't we? So what do we put next? If, open paren, if it's not greater than or equal to 10,000, let's just see if it's greater than 3,000. Less than 10,000, but more than 3,000. That'd be strictly greater than 3,000, wouldn't it? So I say, check to see if that thing again is greater than 3,000, but we don't want to type 3,000. We want to click on this, 3,000. That's absolute reference. If it's greater than 3,000, 250 is our penalty, and that's absolute. Well, what if that's not true? Well, if that's not true, then we only owe 3,000 or less, don't we? So just 0. Yeah, we don't need another if, because we already know it's not more than 3,000. So we just put a 0 there, and we need 2 close parentheses. So this says this guy owes 600. If we copy it down, we got 250 that we owe on amounts between 3,000 and 10 grand, and nothing on that. Okay, that was number 4. Oh man, we're almost done. Number 5. Penalties can sometimes be specific to vendor category. It says in column K, that's right here, write a formula that can be copied down to calculate for vendors in the labor category. Here's our categories. Apply 6%, and it shows it right here. Here's our category penalties. If they're in the utilities category, apply a fee of 90% or 9%. Yeah, that'd be a big fee. 90%. Otherwise, any other categories, apply 12%. So, labor and utilities are what we're going to check for, right? And anything else is all lumped together. In the category penalties, we basically just need to check for labor. If it's not labor, then check for utilities. If it's not utilities, then it's got to be something else, and we don't care what it is. So it looks like it's going to be nested ifs, and we only need 2 of them. So what are we trying to check for first? Doesn't really matter. We're going to check for either labor or utilities. They put it in order with labor first, so let's do that. If this thing, where's our category? It is over here in column B. So if that thing equals, and boy, we'd have to make sure that these are all spelled correctly, wouldn't we? Because if somebody misspells utilities, it's going to charge them that other penalty. And typically we wouldn't let them type in here. We'd have a drop-down list where they'd have to pick either labor or utilities or other. But They didn't do that. Okay, so if B9 is equal to what? Is equal to this. And we don't have to put quotes around it because it's referring to that cell, but we do need to make it an absolute reference because we don't want that thing to move down. So if that's true, where's our penalty? It's right here, absolute. And what's that applied to? The total past due balance. So it's that thing times that total past due balance. Well, what if it's not labor? Then what do? We got to do another if, don't we? Now check to see if that thing, which was B9, if it's equal to this, utilities, and I'll make that absolute. How much do we charge them? We charge them this 9% absolute reference times their total past due balance. And then what? If we get to this point, we know it's not labor and it's not utilities. Everybody else gets charged that 12%, don't they? So I don't have to check for anything else. I just say, if neither one of those things is true, give me this K, absolute reference, times their unpaid balance. And now I'll need two closing parens, and those should be the numbers. There's actually a little more efficient way to do this, and I'll close with that. We're not going to worry about formatting the columns. Look at how many times we have multiplied by G9, multiplied by G9, multiplied by G9. That's redundant. A more elegant way to do it would be just tell me what multiplier I need. And then after I close the if statement, multiply that times G9. I'll rewrite that formula over here. Here's a little trick. If you haven't done your mixed references correctly, you can copy just the text of it, and now I'll go in here and say equals, paste the text. Instead of multiplying by G9 3 different times, what we can say is, if that category is equal to labor, what's the multiplier I want? I want that 6%. Otherwise, check to see if that thing is equal to utilities. If it's utilities, I want that 9% multiplier. And if it's not one of those, then I really just want that K4, that 12% multiplier. So here's the point. I took out all those times G9s. If I do this, it's just going to show me the percent that I have to charge, right? So there's a 0.09, some of them are going to be a 0.06, some of them are going to be a 0.12. But I don't want that, I want it to show me the dollars. So I just say, take whatever that thing is, and after you figure out what the multiplier is, now multiply that times G9, and now I'll get the same thing. So that's a little bit more elegant because we're not repeating that times G9, times G9, times G9. We're just saying, tell me what the percent is, and once you figure that out, then multiply it times G9. Either way is fine. I wouldn't count either one wrong on the test. Here are those formulas side by side. In the left formula, we said find what the multiplier is and multiply it. If you didn't find labor, then look for utilities and multiply it by this multiplier. Otherwise, take this multiplier. But we could make our if statement a lot shorter and say, just find me the right multiplier, either K2 or K3 or K4. Those are our multipliers. So we just said, find me the K2, K3, K4, and once you find that, then take that multiplier and multiply it times the total balance.